Hello, everybody. I wanted to make this video to kind of give you a little further explanation about this project that I'm assigning you today. So I'm going to walk you through these instructions and go over with you what some of these requirements are and expectations. So this is the Wellness Challenge project, and you have these instructions in Google Classroom, and there's actually something in here. This also is going to be your project plan, which you have to turn in by Thursday. So you're going to spend your class period today looking at the instructions, getting the overview, and starting to work on your project plan, which is very, very short, but that has to be turned into me by Thursday so that I can look over it and get back with you by Friday before we go on spring break if there's any concerns that I may have. If I don't get back with you, then I did not have any concerns and you're free to proceed as you like. Anyway, this is the Wellness Challenge project, like I said. So you've studied things like motivation and stress and positive psychology and those sorts of things. So what you're going to be doing with this project is choosing and making one positive lifestyle change for, it says here, a few days. It's a minimum of 4, preferably 4 consecutive days, but as we're about to go on spring break, I realize that may not be possible. So preferably 4 consecutive days, but you need to document 4 days of making this positive change, and then you have to measure that against something such as your motivation. It could be your stress level. It could be the quality of your sleep. It could be your emotions. It could be really anything, but it has to be something that you can actually measure, and I'm going to show you some ways that you can do that. So the first step is going to be to pick what it is you're going to do. What lifestyle change are you going to make? And this list is just some possibilities, and a lot of people do choose from things on this list, but it doesn't have to be these. If you have something else you want to do, you can certainly do it. But for example, you might decide that you're going to go on a walk every day for 4 days, or you're going to make sure you go to bed at a certain time, or sometimes people choose getting up earlier. Maybe you want to reduce your screen time. You could choose to reduce your caffeine, whatever. But something that is, part of supporting a healthy lifestyle, something that you don't already do. So if you already exercise every day, that wouldn't be something you want to make the change for. But one thing that you think you can feasibly do for at least 4 days and measure. And you also have to choose what it is you're going to be measuring that up against. So what you're going to be turning in, there's 2 parts of this that you're turning in. One is going to be a chart. You're going to collect your data over those 4 days, document that you made the change and then measure whatever wellness factor that you're measuring. And you're also going to turn in a reflection paper once this is all over with, and I'll explain the due dates and stuff later. So after you've collected your data, you're going to write a 1.5-page paper analyzing your results and how the project went. You can use these questions down here to help you write that paper. You do not have to address every single one of these. You can address a couple of them, just whichever ones make the most sense or speak to you or help you write the reflection, but that can be helpful is what's in that box right there. Please pay close attention to these parameters. The reflection paper will be submitted as a typed Google document. You're going to use either Times New Roman font or Arial font, size 12, and it does have to be double spaced. If you're not sure how to double space, I'll show you that really quickly right now. You just go up here to Format, then go to Line and Spacing, line and spacing, and then go down to double, and that will make sure that whatever you're typing is double spaced. And you're going to turn that in. I will make a separate post for that in Google Classroom once we get back from spring break, or maybe actually before we go on the break, because some of you might complete it early, and that's where you'll submit that. So you're going to turn in a chart. I'll show you what that might look like in a moment, and a reflection paper. The reflection paper can address any combination of these questions or even all of them, and it needs to follow these parameters. Here's the rubric, so you can see how you get points for your chart you're going to make. The chart does need to be easy to read, easy to understand, all of that, and then you have your overall paper analysis grade right there, and all that combines together for the total. Now here's the part you need to be concerned about first. This is the project plan. This is the part of this that I'm going to be looking at when you turn it in no later than Thursday. These boxes that are purple, that's where you need to type something, is in the purple boxes. So first you need to tell me, what change are you going to make for this project? So again, that might be you're going to go to bed at a certain time. It could be you're going to turn your phone off at a certain time to reduce your screen time. It could be you're going to go on a walk, you're going to exercise, you're going to eat more healthy food, whatever it may be. You're going to describe that change right there. Then you have to put in what wellness factor are you going to measure. Are you going to measure your stress level? Are you going to measure your motivation, your concentration, your emotion for that over how you felt overall that day, if it was a sad or happy, whatever. But what is it that you're going to measure that up against? So you've got a change that you're making and then something that you're measuring. The hardest part here is really not that hard. It's just a lot of people get confused by this word and what this means. But it's important to know, how are you going to quantify your data? In other words, how are you going to measure? If you say that you're measuring stress, how are you going to define what stress is? How are you going to define really stressed versus not really stressed, or what have you? In this gray box right here, this gives an example of what that might look like and a strong suggestion that I would make of how to quantify your data. The easiest way to quantify data in a situation like this is to use a scale of some kind. It's like this right here. This is it's actually called a Likert scale. And you've seen these before. I'm sure you've had to take surveys of various types where you had to say, oh, I was satisfied or somewhat satisfied or not satisfied at all or something like that. If you will make a Likert scale like that to measure stress or whatever, that will give you a very, very easy way to, at the end of each day that you're documenting this, to say, okay, here's how I feel now, here's how I can measure that particular thing. So this example was measuring motivation. So I made this up. You could change it, you could modify it, you could add levels to it. I think you need at least probably 4 or 5. Kind of the industry standard is 7, but I don't think it needs to necessarily be that many. But here's a made up scale. Let's say I was measuring my motivation. So I'm going to say a 1 is I didn't feel motivated at all. A 2 is I was somewhat motivated. 3, I was neutral. And you can read the rest. And so as I document whatever it is I'm doing each day, I could indicate which stress level I felt, and then I'm going to use that data to make my chart and to see my results, to see did I make a positive change. So it says you do need to record, your excuse me. Record that each day. You're not turning that part into me. You might do that on notebook paper. You might keep track of that in your phone or something like that. But you do need to have a way where you're charting this kind of throughout the time. The project plan, this part right here, these 3 things, this is due to me by Thursday. The reason for that is so I can, on Thursday and Friday, look at it, and if I see anything that looks concerning, or I'm like, I'm not sure what you mean by that or whatever, I will put it in the comments. So please check your comments by Friday before you leave school on Friday to see if there's any concerns that you might need to correct. If there's nothing there, then A, either you didn't put anything for me to look at, or 2, I didn't see any problems. Then again, 4 consecutive days where you measure. Then on Wednesday, April the 2nd, that's the week we get back from spring break, that day, the class period, you will have that class period to take your data. You can write your paper during that time. You can make your chart during that time. So you get a little bit of class time to work on what you're actually going to turn in. And then the final project, which is a chart and the paper, is due Thursday, April the 3rd. So that is your timeline for it. Now next, if you keep on scrolling down, here is an example project plan. This is a silly made-up example. Obviously, you cannot do this one because A, you have to do your own, but this one actually doesn't represent a wellness change. It's actually kind of the opposite. I just took it kind of a weird route so that it would be something no one else would do. This is not a healthy change. This is an unhealthy change. But the change for this one, I said I'm going to eat fast food once a day. So forget eating healthy. I'm going to eat fast food once a day. I'm going to measure my energy level, and I'm going to quantify my data with a scale like this one. And again, you get to kind of make up and manipulate this how you want. So I said, all right, if I feel no energy that day, I'll give it a 1. If I feel a little bit of energy, 2, so forth and so on. And then let's assume that for the next 4 days, I eat fast food every day, and maybe at the end of the day, I record, maybe I put it in my phone, maybe I write it down on a piece of notebook paper. Which of these best describes my energy level for that day? Then I'm going to remember what you got to turn in is 2 things, a chart and a paper. That could be all together in one file because it can all be in one Google Doc, or it may be in 2 files. Some people do their chart in Google Slides. Some people do it in Canva. You can really use any platform there that you like, in which case you'd be turning in 2 files. You'd have one, the Google Doc where your paper is, and then your chart. But here's what I mean by a chart. So here's how I did mine. So it might look something like this. You could really do this in any kind of way you want, whatever makes sense to you. It just needs to clearly show here's how these these two things that I was looking at and doing measure up against each other. So mine shows, okay, here's my 4 days of eating fast food, and then here is my energy level. So I took that data that I recorded over those 4 days and I made it into a chart. Towards the end of this video, I will show you how I actually made this chart, so in case you want to know how to do this. And you can also do the same thing in Google Slides. You'll have a little tutorial of that. But again, it is just one way. You can really do it any way you like. So it's up to you how you want this to be presented, but it does need to be presented well. So again, what you're doing first, the first priority is this part right here, or rather it's actually up here for you. You need to come up with and think about what change are you going to do? What are you going to measure? How are you going to measure it? And again, I need that by Thursday so I can look over it. Then you do those things and, take those notes for 4 days. And then you turn in by the 3rd a chart, like so, and then a paper where you address some of these questions and make sure it falls into these parameters. So at this time, I'm going to show you how I made that chart. So if you're not interested in that or not interested in it right now, you can go ahead and stop the video, but I'm going to proceed on with instructions of how to make that chart. So here's how I made the chart if you're interested, like this one. Again, you can do this in Google Docs, or you can do the same thing works in Google Slides. So either way you want to do it. But what you do is you go to Insert and you go to Chart. Now, I did the bar chart. Actually, no, this is the column chart. You could do the bar, you could do the line, you could do the pie, if that makes sense to you. It doesn't really matter. Whichever one works best for you. I did column. So I hit that, and it's going to create just a generic one. So now I've got to manipulate this to fit my data and my information. So what you're going to do here is click on it, and notice this little bit here called Link Chart comes up. So I'm going to open that up. I'm going to open Source. And what that's going to do, it's going to take me to a Google Sheet that has all this data. And then all I'm going to do is just change the data to reflect what I did. So give it a second to pop up here. It's being a little slow. There it goes. Okay, so scroll up to the top. Sorry, my mouse is going the opposite direction that I want it to go. Here we go. Scrolling up now. How did I get down on the 300s? I'll never know. Okay, sorry about that. I'm on my Chromebook, which is a little bit harder for me to manipulate. Anyway, first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this one because I don't need this. I'm just showing the one thing, so I'm just going to delete that. So I'm going to change these teams here to days because I did this over a span of 4 days. So I'm going to go in here and just change that information. Oops, that needs to say day 1. Day 1. This one becomes day 3, and this one becomes day 4. Then over here, I'm going to put, this is where my scale comes in. This is why a scale is a good idea because it gives you literal numbers to work with, which you can easily put into a Google Doc chart or a Google Slides chart. So again, I'm just going to assume, I'm going to make this up, that maybe my energy level on day 1 was a 5, and then by day 2, I was at a 3. Maybe day 1, I was really not energetic at all. I had a 1 and then a 2, or there we go, a 2, like so. So there's that. So I put in my data. Oops, not 38, 2. There we go. Okay, then I go back over here to where I inserted that chart, and now I want to hit Update. So I hit Update, and bam, now it's updated my chart to reflect that data that I just put in, and then I can make it bigger or smaller. If I want to further manipulate things, for example, if I don't want that to say points scored, because I don't, I'm going to click on that over here. And what that will do is it's going to bring up, or it should, let me expand this out a little bit. There we go. Here's how I can customize. So if I go to Chart Axis and Titles, I can change all of that kind of stuff. I can change the horizontal axis. So maybe I want to change that to days of eating fast food. I can change the font, I can change colors, I can do all that stuff, but over here is where you customize and change all that, and then every time you come back over here, we update, and see there it changed it to days of eating fast food. So that's how, and you can just sort of mess with it from there. But that's how you can put in a chart, so I hope that is helpful. At any rate, if you have any questions, please shoot me an email, put it in the comments. Do that as soon as you have that question. Don't wait till the last minute because you've got a good bit of time to work on this, plus spring break. So best of luck, and I hope you're able to introduce a change that might be very effective for you.